life, you're going to experience cancer in some way or the other. Whether it's you or whether it's someone else, cancer is something there. And so we want to talk about what cancer is and how that kind of is treated and kind of the different things about cancer. And so that's what we're going to do in this particular chapter. And so a lot of us have heard of cancer, and we know that it's not something great for our health, but we don't actually know what cancer is. And so when it comes to cancer, we want to define what cancer is. And cancer simply means that there are cells in your body that are growing uncontrollably. So all the cells in your body currently are multiplying and dividing and growing, if we want to use that word growing, but they're multiplying and dividing to some extent. They're all of our cells in our body are doing this, but they're always controlled. Some cells grow kind of slowly, but some cells grow a little bit quicker. So your skin cells grow at a very quick rate, and some cells, maybe like your, the cells in your stomach, maybe grow a little bit slower. But they're all growing and multiplying. But some things can happen to cells over time. So there's some mutation or some change in that cell that makes it grow uncontrollably. And when a cell starts growing at an uncontrolled rate, meaning that nothing's stopping it from growing and keeping multiplying, this is called cancer. Now, when we talk about cancer, we also want to talk about tumors. Tumors are different than cancer. When we talk about tumor cells, this is a group of cells in the body that serve no physiological purpose. So right now, if we could assume that all of you are healthy and don't have a tumor or cancer, every cell in your body has a purpose of some sort. And this is a good thing. But occasionally things happen to those cells, and maybe they change and they serve no purpose in the body. So a tumor cell is simply a cell in the body that serves no physiological purpose. It does nothing for you. It has no purpose being there. If we removed it, you wouldn't even know. So when it comes to this, realize that we have these tumor cells that aren't necessarily cancerous. They can be, but they don't serve a physiological purpose in the body. And so if a doctor says that you have a tumor, that's all that means, is that you have some cells that don't necessarily have to be there. When you have a tumor cell, they're typically going to look to see if that tumor is either benign or malignant. A benign tumor is one that is non-cancerous. You're hoping that if a doctor finds a tumor and tests it, that it is a benign tumor, that it's non-cancerous, meaning that it doesn't serve a purpose in the body, but it also isn't growing uncontrollably. With a benign tumor, a doctor may choose to remove that or not. Most of the time, a doctor is going to try not to remove a tumor cell unless they have to. So if it's in the brain and causing you vision issues, they'll try to remove that tumor. But if a tumor is in the middle of your stomach and not causing any issues, they're simply going to leave it there because it would be more dangerous for them to remove it than for them to leave it. And they'll just monitor it over time to make sure that it doesn't morph and become cancerous. If you have a tumor and they biopsy it, so they take a small portion of it and send it off to a lab, and they come back and they say that you have a malignant tumor, we're hoping that we don't hear this because this means that that tumor is cancerous. And so that means that it's a tumor that serves no physiological purpose in the body, but it also is growing at an uncontrolled rate and spreading across the body, and this would be considered a cancerous tumor. Realize all tumors in the body are not necessarily cancerous. They don't serve a purpose, but they're not necessarily cancerous, growing at an uncontrolled rate. But anytime we have a cancer, those cancers are considered to be tumors as well. There is no kind of good cancer in the body. There's no cancer where we're like, oh, yes, this one's going to help me out and allow me to be stronger or things like that. All cancers in the body that are growing uncontrollably are also cancers or tumors that serve no physiological purpose. When it comes to that, we can also look at our cancers. Do you guys know how we name cancers? How would we name a cancer? There's a very specific way that we name cancers. How is that done? What do you guys think?
The area in which the cancer is found.
Yeah, so the area which it's found, or where the area that cancer is first developed. So if someone says they have lung cancer, that simply means that the cancer originated or started in the lungs. And so this is a good thing because if we know where it started, we're going to treat them each a little bit differently because the tissues in those cells are a little bit different. They may require different kinds of treatments. When it comes to our cancers, what we don't want to happen is something called a metastasis or a metastasizing of our cancer developing mets. What this means is that our cancer has spread into more parts of the body, that lung cancer has now spread into other tissues such as the stomach or the intestines. Do you guys think this is a good thing or a bad thing when it comes to our cancers?
Bad.
It is bad. And that's because when it spreads and it goes into other areas, it becomes much harder to fight. It's not in a central location. And it's very hard for us to treat that because we have to treat every area that cancer is a little bit differently. And so we hope that we don't have our cancer metastasize or become something spread into different regions. We want to contain it in a very small area. And so this is kind of what we have to go with cancer of kind of what is it and what's going on with it. My question to you guys is what do you think actually what are some things that lead to cancers? What are some things that happen or don't happen that may make you more likely to be at risk for certain cancers? Do you guys know what some risk factors for cancers are, or some things that are carcinogenic that lead to cancers?
Could it just be like genetics?
Yeah, so our genes actually play a big role in whether we develop certain types of cancers. Realize it does vary cancer to cancer. There are some cancers like lung cancer that have a 0% genetic component, meaning that there is basically almost a 0% chance that anything in your genes are related to whether you develop lung cancer. It's all kind of has to do with our lifestyle choices or the things that we do. There are some cancers like breast cancer that are around 50% genetic, meaning that if we have a family history of breast cancer, we're about 50% likely to develop it on our own, even if we do everything right. And then there are some cancers that are very rare types of cancers. We don't see them very often, but they are 100% genetically related, meaning that if you develop this cancer, we can trace it back to somewhere in your family history of someone else developing this cancer. And if you don't have a family history of it, you're almost not going to get that cancer whatsoever. So our genes play a role. What else might play a role in our risk of developing certain types of cancer? Someone said obesity. Obesity definitely could be. So having increased mass to our height could definitely put our bodies at having to work harder and lead to cancers. Smoking is another great example that someone said. We know that tobacco products, whether that's smoking cigarettes or smoking marijuana or dipping or e-cigarettes, that type of thing, has an increased risk for cancers. We know those two things actually cause that. And so we'll look at those causes. We talked about genes. We talked about tobacco. Tobacco is a huge issue because tobacco is still the #1 leading cause of cancer across the world and across the United States. Tobacco is the #1 leading cause of cancer. We know that your diet can play a role in this. What we eat, not getting enough of things or getting too much of certain things like alcohol can put you more at risk for developing intestinal or liver cancers or intestines of the stomach. We know obesity or being inactive can put you more at risk for cancers, but being active can actually be preventative in those cancers. And then there are also things in your environment that can cause cancers. So we have things like ingested chemicals. There are all kinds of chemicals that we consider to be carcinogenic, which means that they're likely to cause cancer if you're exposed to them in certain amounts. A lot of the times, if you work with chemicals that may cause cancer, there are protective mechanisms put in place that help prevent you from being exposed to that and causing cancer. But at the end of the day, there are lots of things that can lead to that. Kind of thinking about the things under your kitchen sink, if you were to drink them, they may lead to cancer over time. An example of ingested chemicals would be something called asbestos. Asbestos was used a number of years ago in the United States as insulation for houses to keep them warm and as a fire retardant to keep things from catching fire. And so this could be something that causes cancer over time. We may have heard of commercials that are talking about if you've ever developed something called mesothelioma, that you can file this basically get this money. Please call this number 1-800-456-8729. That number is there because we know asbestos causes cancer, and so we've banned asbestos use in the United States because we know it causes cancer, but other countries still use it. One person put here that firefighters have a higher risk for certain cancers because a burning building may actually release chemicals into the air that they breathe in. That's very correct in that fact. And so ingested chemicals is a thing. And related to that would be also pollution. Pollution is something found in the air released from cars and burning fossil fuels and things like that can be released that make us more likely to ingest some of these chemicals through the air that lead to cancers. That's something that's there. Some places are more at risk than others. We also have radiation. When I say the word radiation, what comes to your mind? What do you think about causing cancer that is radiation related or radioactive related? So we've got some people saying x-rays. So x-rays could lead to cancer. Thankfully, if you work with an x-ray machine, those particular people are monitored to make sure they don't get too much. If you're a normal citizen, unless you're getting an x-ray every single day because you've hurt yourself, x-rays aren't too much of a concern, but it could be. The people who first discovered x-rays actually died from cancers because they didn't know the risk of them. Some of you might think radiation from nuclear material like nuclear power plants or nuclear bombs. Thankfully, that doesn't really affect us too much. We don't have to worry about those particular items causing those cancers in us unless we're around a natural disaster like Chernobyl or Fukushima power plant, or maybe that's our job is to work with them, but hopefully we'd take those appropriate precautions. What do you guys think is the most likely source of radiation that we receive that is likely to cause skin cancer? We actually come in, yes, someone actually answered the sun. We come in contact with it quite often. The sun releases radiation, and through getting sunburnt, we can actually put ourselves at risk for developing things like skin cancer. And so we have to be aware of that. Now, lately in Georgia, it's been raining a lot. We haven't had to worry, but today, it's actually kind of sunny, and exposing ourselves to it is a good thing. It helps we'll talk about what it helps with, but too much of it can actually lead to cancer over time. And then we have microbes. There are actually viruses and parasites and bacteria that can actually lead to cancers. Things like the HPV virus, the human papillomavirus. The reason that it's so worried about, and we'll talk about this semester, is the fact that it actually is a virus that leads to cancer, and this can be a concern. And so now that we've covered kind of the causes of cancers and kind of what's there, some of the things that put us more at risk for it, we want to talk about cancers specifically, like what are some of the cancers out there and what are some of the things that relate to those. And so some of the cancers we're going to talk about is things like lung cancer. Realize that lung cancer is still the number one cancer in the world. It's still the deadliest cancer in the world. Do you guys know what the number one cause of lung cancer is? Yeah, so tobacco use, smoking is the number one cause for lung cancer. Probably something around 90 to 95% of lung cancers are caused by tobacco use or smoking. It has very little to do with our genetics, but it is the number one cancer and the number one deadly cancer, and it all has to do with decisions that we make. Realize that lung cancer can be treated pretty easily if found early. We can cut out pieces of the lung and treat that, but if it's waited too long, it can be hard to treat because it is life-threatening as far as our breathing. Realize that lung cancer doesn't have to come from smoking. Some people develop lung cancer for various reasons. There are actually two professions, two career paths that you could choose that actually have high rates of lung cancer. What do you guys think those two professions are that have high rates of lung cancer?
Probably like firefighting.
So firefighting is the first one. Firefighters have an increased rate of lung cancer because they run into burning buildings that are releasing chemicals that get into their lungs. Yes, they wear masks that kind of protect them, but those don't 100% seal out all of the chemicals that they breathe in over years of worth of firefighting. So that would be one. What do you think the other profession is that may have high rates of lung cancer? So construction workers, a couple of you were saying from the dust. We see a little bit of an increased risk, but not like necessarily too much. That's not a bad guess. think about someone who's maybe more confined into an area. We don't have a lot of this in Georgia, but there's a lot of these in West Virginia that maybe
Coal mining.
yeah, so coal mining or mining itself, when you're in an enclosed small area, basically digging for certain minerals, a lot of particles are put into the air, and so you may breathe those in. And we see coal miners specifically, but miners in general, at a higher risk for things like lung cancer. So yeah, that was great. We also have a cancer, so colon or rectal cancer. So this is cancer of the colon or the rectum area. We typically see this particular cancer happening more in older men, is who we see having more colon and rectal cancers. We can see it in women. It's just not as much. We can see it in younger people, but just not as much. There is some genetic component to it. We do know that colon and rectal cancer, if caught early, can be very easily treated. And that's why men over the age of 50 are requested to get a colon exam and a rectal exam to look for these things. Because if caught early, it can be treated very easily. But if ignored, because men may not like to talk about problems they're having in their rectal region, it can be quite deadly if left to grow on its own. Another common cancer that we're seeing a lot of and people are talking a lot about is breast cancer. Breast cancer is cancer of the breast tissue. Typically, we see this in women, especially older women. We see it more typically. Can breast cancer happen in younger women? Yeah, it definitely can happen in younger women. What about men? Can men actually suffer from breast cancer?
Yes.
Yeah, men can actually suffer from breast cancer. And so realize that almost anyone can have breast cancer. With men, it tends to be quite deadly because it's not something that people are looking for. And in women, breast cancer can be treated pretty easily. There are some forms of that disease that are harder to treat than others, but breast cancer does have some good survival rates when it comes to it, especially when caught early. Can you guys think of some things that are specific to breast cancer risk factors, so things that may make you more likely to develop breast cancer when it comes to that disease itself?
I know for me personally, I have to watch more of my health because both my grandmas had it.
Yeah, so breast cancer has a genetic component to it, and the fact that if you have a family history of people developing it, you may be more at risk. And so, yeah, so that's one example of it. We know that smoking increases that risk, or being inactive increases your risk for breast cancer as well. And then also a weird fact, breast cancer, we know that if you have not had a child by the age of 30 years old, you are more likely to develop breast cancer. Now, this doesn't mean that you should go have a child to prevent breast cancer. It's not like you're going to get it if you haven't had a child by the age of 30. But we just know that women who haven't had children by the age of 30 are more likely because of the hormones that are released during the pregnancy and birthing process. And so it's just something to kind of keep in mind as you move forward, that some things may put you more at risk for developing breast cancer. Even though genes play a big role and you can be tested for these genes, realize that just because you have tested positive for the genes that are likely to develop breast cancer doesn't mean that you will develop it. It means that we want to take a proactive approach in preventing it and detecting it, but it doesn't mean that necessarily that's going to happen. When it comes to breast cancer and all of our cancers, we want to help to prevent those cancers, and then we also want to try to detect those cancers as early as possible. The earlier we can detect cancer, the more likely it is that we'll have successful treatment of it and be able to avoid that causing us life-threatening situations and be able to treat it. So kind of keep those in mind. What are some things that can be done to help to detect breast cancer? Do you guys know?
Isn't there like a test where you can feel around the breast area for like lumps and stuff?
Yeah, so we have what we call a self-exam, which is where you feel the breast tissue for lumps and bumps or hard areas, things that don't feel normal. And so this is a good way for you to recognize that maybe something isn't quite right and to go talk to your doctor to have further tests done. How often do you think that you should do a self-exam on your breast tissue?
Every day or multiple times a week?
So typically we say at least once a month is what we say. You could do it every day. We do want to be careful with that because maybe you get used to a lump growing and it feels normal. But we say about once a month at least. You can also do what we call a buddy check system. This isn't where you and a buddy are checking yourself. Some of the guys may be like, "Ooh, I like this idea." No, we're not talking about you checking someone else. We're talking about a system where you remind each other to check yourself. So maybe a couple of friends are saying it the first of every month. We'll send a text message out. Hey, have you done your self-exam for your breast tissue this month, or your breast exam this month? Additionally, we can do what we call a mammogram. Your doctor should be feeling your breasts as well to make sure there's no kind of lumps or bumps or anything that's cancerous. And then once you hit the age of about 40, we recommend that you have a yearly mammogram or a mammogram every few years to check to see if there's cancer in it. If you have a history of breast cancer, you may start these mammograms as early as about 18 to 20 years of age, having them on a regular basis to make sure that there's no cancerous tissue inside that breast tissue. When it comes to treatment, we'll talk about some general treatments for cancers, but with breast cancer in particular, you may have what's called a lumpectomy, which is where they remove the cancerous area from the breast tissue. So they just cut out a chunk of the breast tissue. You may have a mastectomy, which is where they remove all the breast tissue out of one breast. So they just kind of cut all the breast tissue away out of one. And then the most extreme version is what we call a double mastectomy, which is where we remove all the breast tissue from both breasts. When doing this, they want to really make sure that they remove all the tissue, breast tissue that is there. So they're going to cut a good bit away, even past where they think the breast tissue is. Because if doctors leave even a single microscopic cell of breast tissue in your body, there is a chance that that becomes cancerous and turns back into breast cancer. And so it's something to consider as we move forward. Prostate cancer is another very common cancer that is experienced. This is usually typically found in older males. It can be found in younger males, but it can't actually be found in females because females don't have a prostate. So that's good news for you females. Prostate cancer, this is done typically prostate exams. Older men have them along with checking for colorectal cancers. When found early, it's treated very easily, isn't a big issue. But if it is in the rectal region as well, so if this is ignored or people don't want to talk about those issues with their doctor, it can become more of a life-threatening kind of thing that is harder to treat. And so we have that prostate cancer as well. We then have cancers of the head and neck. Realize there are lots of cancers of the head and neck area that we can talk about. This could be nose cancer, mouth cancer, ear, eye cancer, throat cancer even. And so with these particular cancers, do you guys know what the leading cause of most head and neck cancers are?
Phones.
Did you say thumbs?
Tessa wanted me to say phones, so I said phones.
Oh, phones. I got you. Okay. Sorry. I thought you said thumb. I was like, how does your thumb cause cancer? But yeah, so maybe your phones could be. We don't actually know how much cancer your phones cause. They haven't been around long enough for us to see. So phones may eventually start leading to some of those cancers. But currently, we had someone say the sun. Some may be caused by the sun, but the biggest cause of our head and neck cancers is still actually tobacco products. A lot of tobacco products can cause cancers of the throat, of the mouth, the gums, even of the nasal cavity from breathing in that smoke. So you guys are really thinking ahead. With head and neck cancers, they're typically found pretty early on because we do a lot of things with our head and our neck, all those things like breathing and eating and tasting, hearing, seeing. And so they're found pretty early. Do you think it's easy to treat head and neck cancers? Yeah, you guys are correct. It's not very easy to treat them because there's a lot of vital organs that happen in that area. And so it becomes very hard to treat because we can't just start cutting away things because you need those in order to be able to live and function normally. And so our head and neck cancers are sometimes hard to treat. Related to that in that area is we could talk about brain cancers. These are cancers in the brain matter themselves. These particular cancers are typically not found very early on. Most brain cancers are found very late on. And the reason for that is it's not easy for us to look inside the brain. We really only have two ways to do that. That is, first of all, cutting it open and kind of looking inside, which is not a great way to do so. And then we have things like MRI and CT scans that allow us to kind of look in the brain and see if there's cancer inside the brain. These scans are not very common. People don't just have these done. There has to be a reason for your brain to get scanned. And so most brain cancers aren't detected until after people start having physical symptoms. So maybe they're having trouble hearing or with coordination or talking, or maybe they're having trouble with their vision. And typically by the time we see physical symptoms from brain cancer, it's pretty progressed and very hard to treat. Most people that have brain cancers that are treated very well and caught early on, it's by sheer accident. Maybe they get into a car accident and hit their head, and so they are at the hospital and they scan their head to make sure that there's no bleeding in their brain. And while they're in there, they happen to see that there's some cancerous material that can be treated. Also realize once we find brain cancer, it can be actually hard to treat because we can't just go in there and start putting chemicals in the brain or start cutting away pieces of the brain because brain matter is very important. It doesn't regrow. If we cut out a section of the brain, well, that brain material is gone forever and we may not recover from that. And so it can be very hard to treat our brain cancers as well. So then we have leukemia. Do you guys know what leukemia, like what kind of cancer, what are we talking about if we have leukemia? What kind of cancer is that? What's it related to? Someone said blood. And so, yeah, it's blood, but it's a very specific piece of our blood. It's actually our white blood cells. Do you guys know what our white blood cells help us with? Fighting sicknesses. Yeah. So our immune system. So leukemia is a cancer of our white blood cells that help with our immune system. Realize that our white blood cells are actually across our entire body. And so leukemia already is difficult to deal with because it's not a cancer in a specific area. It's actually throughout our entire body. And as that cancer grows and as we treat it, we're actually affecting the immune system, making it harder for us to fight off things like the coronavirus or the flu or things like that. And so leukemia is one of those harder cancers to battle because we pretty much have to wipe out your immune system and then rebuild it from scratch to get rid of this leukemia. We tend to see that leukemia is a little bit more successful in children because children's immune systems aren't as developed. They're still growing. And leukemia in older adults is much more deadly because it's a lot harder to treat because their immune systems have grown completely in that system. So we've talked about a lot of cancers, but this isn't all the cancers, and we're not going to talk about every cancer today. We're talking about some of the more prevalent cancers, and so we'll talk about a few more. There are some cancers that are linked to females that males don't have to worry about. This would be cancer of the so cervical or uterine or ovarian cancers. So these are linked to the reproductive systems of females. These particular cancers males don't have to worry about because they don't have them. And can be very serious. They can be life-threatening. But if caught early, which your OBGYN or gynecologist should be testing for on a pretty regular basis, if they're caught early, they can be treated fairly decently because we can actually remove all of these particular organs because they're not vital to life. They can actually be removed from the body, and they do cause issues, but they're not vital to life. We can find ways around those. When it comes to males, they have to worry about testicular cancer. Females don't have to worry about testicular cancer because they don't have testiculars or testicles. It's not something to worry about. Testicular cancer is a very interesting cancer in the fact that it actually affects younger males more than it does older males. The most likely time frame for you to experience testicular cancer is between puberty and about the age of 30 years old. After you hit 30, testicular cancer risk actually start to lower, which is a very odd for a cancer that it occurs more younger than in older men. With testicular cancer, it can be caught pretty early. It is something that can be looked at very easily. Also, it's not vital to life in the fact that you can remove a testicle or two. in order to be able to treat that. With testicular cancer, it's also, and I mean pun intended, kind of low-hanging fruit. It's easily accessible in the fact that it can be dealt with in that way. When it comes to males and testicular cancer, we do encourage them to kind of have self-exams just like with breast cancer. And so this would be filling the testicles about once a month for lumps, bumps, hard spots, things that don't feel normal. Your doctor should be checking for this. And if you find something that you're not sure about, you should consult your doctor because you want to treat it as early as possible. So with that, we also have things like skin cancer. Skin cancer, what do you guys think the number one cause of skin cancer is? Yeah, so sunburn or the sun itself is the most likely reason for skin cancer, or maybe even tanning beds, so simulating that. When it comes to skin cancer, we're really looking across the skin. Skin cancer ranges from not very severe. My dad actually has skin cancer, and he has hard spots develop on his hands and his face that are burnt off once a year and are no real concern. We have skin cancers that can actually be very worrisome and cause death in a very short amount of time. And the reason that skin cancer is so much of a concern is the fact that skin already grows at a very rapid rate on its own. You're producing skin cells very rapidly right now as we're sitting here. And so if those become cancerous and are growing uncontrollably, they're growing even quicker. And this can cause an issue where skin cancer might not be a problem in one day, and then 30 days later, it could be something that's very life-threatening. The most deadly type of skin cancer we have is something called melanoma. And melanoma skin cancer happens in the deepest part of your skin. So you have the upper layer of your skin that you see, but if we were to kind of peel back the layers, we eventually get to something called the derm that is very deep. Kind of, it's a pretty deep wound. It would bleed pretty bad if you cut your derm. And this is where this particular skin cancer grows. And so what happens is with melanoma is the skin cancer grows underneath the surface layer of the skin for a long time and eventually makes itself appear. So kind of think like an iceberg. By the time we see melanoma on the skin and go to the doctor to have it tested, it has grown quite large underneath our skin and caused a wide variety of problems. So when you look at an iceberg, you see just a little tip, but it's very giant underneath the surface, and that's how melanoma is. When it comes to skin cancer, we tell you to look at the A, B, C, D, E's of skin cancer. And so this would be looking at different spots on your skin. So think kind of like something that is abnormal or something that is like a freckle on your skin. Well, how do you know whether that's cancerous or not? Well, what we do is we use the A, B, C, D's, E's of cancer, of skin cancer to recognize that. And so if we look at those, I'm going to erase this real quick. I will see how quickly it erases. Maybe, is there a new button? I'm trying to look and see. I don't know why I drew so much now. So, awesome. So if we were to look at this, if we have a spot on the skin, what the A stands for is asymmetrical, meaning that we want the spots on our skin to kind of look symmetrical, meaning that if we cut them in half, they kind of fold on top of each other and look very similar. What we don't want to see is something asymmetrical that maybe looks like this right here, where no matter which way we fold this, it's not really going to fold on top of each other. It looks kind of weird. This would be a sign of skin cancer. The B stands for border. We want borders that are nice and smooth, kind of rounded. We don't want to see borders that are jagged, somewhat kind of like here. That would be a sign of skin cancer. And again, one of these things doesn't necessarily mean that it's skin cancer, but the more of these things that we say yes to, the more likely it is that it is cancer itself. The C stands for color. Most spots on your body that are healthy would be kind of brown in color. If those spots become blue or kind of a very dark black in color, this could be a sign of skin cancer. This is harder to determine on people that are of a darker complexion. So Africans, African Americans, especially darker complexion people, this is harder to tell, but it still is something we look for. D stands for diameter. So how wide is it across? We know that if a spot on your skin is bigger than the diameter of a pencil eraser, So think about the eraser on a pencil. If it's bigger than that, then that's a cause of concern. And then finally, E stands for ever changing, meaning that if the spot evolves. So if you have a spot on your skin that looks like this, and then in a couple weeks when you look at it, maybe it's just a little bit bigger, or maybe it looks a little bit different than what it did before, this would be a sign that you could have a cancerous spot on your skin. And so we want to make sure that we kind of keep those things in mind. Let's see. So you guys should still be able to see back to the PowerPoint. So we've got skin cancer. We do recommend that you limit your sun exposure. Make sure you wear sunscreen and don't get sunburnt is the best way. We're then going to link the next couple together. So we have pancreatic cancer, bladder cancer, and kidney cancer. All these are related in the fact that they affect different organs, like the kidneys, the bladder, the pancreas, but they're all related in the fact that they're hard to detect. We don't have a good way to look at the kidneys, the bladder, or the pancreas. And so these cancers tend to be pretty deadly because they're not detected till very late in the game. They're also very hard to treat because we need each of these particular organs. We can't simply remove them because we need them in order to be able to live and function properly. So we do want to be careful with these cancers, but they're very hard to detect, and they're not the most common cancers. Alex Trebek, the host of Jeopardy, has pancreatic cancer, and his cancer is stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and we'll talk about what that means. But his likelihood of surviving that was only 18% 1 year from diagnosis, and he has actually achieved that. And so to live 2 years past his diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, he's only got about a 7% chance of living. But he's very determined. When it comes to fighting cancers, we know that your mental attitude has a lot to do with it. And so he's unlikely to live from it, but he's actually more likely than others because he has a positive attitude about that. The final cancer we want to talk about is a cancer called lymphoma. Lymphoma is a cancer of your lymph system, and your lymph system helps clean your blood of infections. It's another part of our immune system. Realize your lymph system is across your entire body. You have lymph nodes that are concentrated in your neck and in your face. So if you ever had a doctor feel your neck when you're sick, they're looking to see if you have swollen lymph nodes because those can help battle your infections. Because this has to do with your immune system is all over your body, it's very similar to that of your leukemia, and that it can be hard to treat because it's all over the body. And so this kind of rounds out the cancers we're going to